welcome to this explainer. Today we are unpacking the underlying architecture behind taking an app from a local release right out to the global market. Now, for engineers and product teams, you probably know this isn't just about handing off a massive spreadsheet of text strings to a translation agency. Oh no, it's way more complex than that. We are talking about the deep structural difference between internationalization, or I18N, which is prepping your code base to handle all sorts of regional formats, and localization, or L10N, which is the actual adaptation of the UI for a specific locale. We're going to explore what literally breaks in a user interface when you throw in new character encodings, dynamic text flows, and localized data structures. Okay, let's dive into this. What actually happens when your app travels the world? Well, the reality is, if your user interface is tightly coupled with hard-coded English strings, your app is essentially tethered to one single market. The second you launch globally, boom, you instantly hit a brick wall of architectural complexities. Suddenly, you're dealing with the absolute necessity of having UTF-8 character encoding across your entire stack. You have to totally decouple your source code from your display strings, relying on some really sophisticated string interpolation to inject variables seamlessly into sentences where the grammatical structures might completely flip depending on the language. It's a huge interface challenge, and it requires building a highly elastic front end that can anticipate the unexpected.
Here is a quick look at our agenda for today. 1. Going global, the interface challenge. 2. Words, space, and direction. 3. Formats, time, dates, and money. 4. Practical localization testing. And 5. The future of global apps.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Going Global, the Interface Challenge. So localization is essentially the process of adapting an application to specific languages and regional technical requirements. But here's the kicker. True global expansion requires way more than just swapping out vocabulary words. From an engineering perspective, this means you have to architect your application so that the user interface layer is completely abstracted from the content layer. Like, if a developer hard codes a string directly into a component, that component immediately becomes a major liability in a global release. Instead, your components must dynamically fetch their strings from resource files based on the user's defined locale. Honestly, the most perfect translation in the world is totally useless if your underlying architecture doesn't support the dynamic rendering required to actually display those characters correctly without totally breaking the layout. Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds into our next big hurdle: words, space, and direction. And this brilliantly illustrates one of the biggest headaches in localization: text expansion. A super concise, snappy word in English can bloat by up to 300% when translated into a language like German or Russian. Just think about that. If your UI is built using fixed width containers or absolute positioning, that translated text is going to immediately overflow, clip, or just push other elements right off the edge of the screen. To combat this, modern development relies heavily on dynamic UI frameworks. Think Flexbox on the web or Auto Layout in iOS. These let your containers breathe and scale naturally. Furthermore, really robust engineering teams use a super clever technique called pseudo-localization during the early build phases. They basically replace all the English text with artificially expanded, bracketed dummy text just to stress test the UI's elasticity long before actual human translations ever begin. Moving beyond just the physical space words take up, we run into the incredibly complex challenge of right-to-left, or RTL, script layouts used in languages like Arabic or Hebrew. To pull this off, you have to implement bidirectional or BIDI text algorithms. Basically, the system needs to know exactly how to handle mixed content. For instance, what happens when an Arabic sentence contains an English brand name or a Western numeral? Well, those specific parts must still render left to right inside the broader right-to-left flow. It's like a giant puzzle. Plus, your entire interface architecture has to flip. You aren't just aligning text differently, you are physically mirroring the structural flow of the app. But developers have to programmatically dictate which vector graphics and icons should actually mirror, like, say, a back arrow, and which ones absolutely must remain static, such as a checkmark or a clock face, which never flip regardless of the language direction. Moving right along to Section 3, Formats, Time, Dates, and Money. It's a classic mix-up, isn't it? A big launch scheduled for 03/04 means March 4th to a US team, but April 3rd to a European team. I mean, we've all been there, and it's a scheduling nightmare. But while this little everyday anecdote is super common, the engineering solution behind preventing it is absolutely critical. To avoid this chaos, the backend must strictly store all dates and times in a universal UTC format.
The heavy lifting is then pushed out to the front end, where standard formatting libraries like ICU message formats or native APIs like Intel.datetime format in JavaScript dynamically parse that UTC's timestamp. The UI then renders the date perfectly according to the locale string passed by the user's browser or device setting. This ensures the presentation layer automatically, seamlessly adapts between a month/day or day/month structure and 12-hour versus 24-hour clocks, all without requiring any messy custom parsing logic from the developers.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how currency and measurements demand absolute, exact regional precision. Handling them incorrectly isn't just an annoyance, it can lead to catastrophic financial bugs. First off, you never ever use standard floating point math for currency calculations because of precision errors. No way. You handle money in the smallest base unit, like cents, using integer arithmetic. Then, over on the presentation side, you absolutely must utilize ISO 4217 currency codes programmatically. The system uses these codes to figure out not just the correct symbol, but the precise placement of that symbol. Does it go before or after the amount? It also dictates the specific use of commas versus decimal points for thousand separators and fractional values, which varies completely depending on the locale. A single misplaced decimal in a transaction UI is, without a doubt, a critical failure. Which brings us to Section 4, Practical Localization Testing. Okay, so how do we actually test all this? Validating an app across multiple locales requires integrating rigorous localization tests right into your CI/CD pipeline. Doing manual checks for this? Literally impossible at scale. Instead, engineering teams utilize automation pipelines with tools like Appium or Selenium. During these test runs, the environments actually rely on locale spoofing to simulate devices sitting in entirely different regions. The pipeline automates the process of navigating through the app in 30 different languages, snapping thousands of screenshots along the way. These images are then run through smart visual regression tools that automatically flag if a newly committed German string has clipped outside its bounding box, or if an RTL interface flip caused a navigation bar component to misalign. It's a real game changer because it catches all the visual bugs long before they ever reach production. Finally, we've reached Section 5, the future of global apps. So the crucial point is that mastering these principles goes far beyond just getting the translated words right. It's about building a highly robust delivery pipeline that treats localization as a core architectural pillar rather than some last-minute afterthought. Think about it. If your CI/CD pipeline automatically tests for text expansion limits using pseudo-localization, you completely eliminate layout breaks. If your front-end components natively support dynamic bidirectional language flows, you seamlessly capture the RTL market. And if you are strictly storing data in UTC and using ISO standards to let the presentation layer handle all the complex math and formatting of dates and currencies, well, you build immense trust with a global user base. This technical checklist basically ensures that your app behaves like a perfectly native application everywhere it launches. Which brings us to the big question. Is your app truly ready for the global stage? The next time you push a quick UI update or hardcode a seemingly harmless string just to save a little time, ask yourself, did I just break this application for half the planet without even realizing it? When you start to truly understand the sheer technical orchestration required behind the scenes, from BIDI algorithms to dynamic locale fetching, literally just to render a date or a button correctly, it fundamentally changes how you approach software engineering. Localization isn't just translation, folks. It is a profound test of your software's architectural resilience. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep building robustly, and I will see you next time.